Hi guys, Chris here from Gemini Canine Obedience. Today we're talking about a fixed ratio and a variable schedule reinforcement. A fixed ratio simply is rewarding every attempt made by the dog for the preferred behavior. So for example, we would say to the dog, sit, we would lure the dog into position, mark the behavior and reward. Simple as that. We would do that anywhere from 3 to 5 times. The fixed ratio makes for easier learning for the dog, because every time it gives the behavior, it is rewarded. Eventually the dog puts it together. We call that operant conditioning. When teaching new behaviors, we always use a fixed ratio. That is a scheduled reinforcement when we're working with our rewards. Take it quick. Right, you take it before he drops it. Very nice, looking good. Nice, and then we'll do one more. Reward, release, big play. Good job. Very nice. That was much better.
Good job.
And once again, what we did is we asked a little bit more from the dog. What we wanted is for the dog to actually take the pipe and hold it. All we need is anywhere from 1/1000 to 2/1000 of a second, at which time, again, the handler is going to mark the behavior and reward. Any perfect attempt given by the dog must be reinforced in order for the dog to put it together. So we have Mark with Donnie, and they're working on the stand for examination. Nice.
Good boy.
And what he does is once the dog comes into the position, he marks the behavior and then he rewards.
Stand.
And every attempt given by the dog must be rewarded. It makes for efficient training. And handler beware. The flip side to that is, again, if we decide to not reward the behavior, so if you decided, well, I'm just not going to use the reward anymore, you do run the risk of the behavior going into extinction. And all that means is you will lose the behavior. It will disappear, because it's like going to work and not getting paid. Eventually nothing's going to happen.
Stand.
Okay. Excellent, looking good. Let's keep more in the center here.
Boy.
And more space.
Good boy. Stand.
Very nice. Another one?
Good boy. So one more. Listen. Stand.
You see how much easier it is for the dog to learn the behavior, because we're rewarding every attempt the dog makes. And usually what we do is we use rewards that the dog really loves without it being too strong a reward, because this can create a little bit more chaos. So he's using a food reward, which makes it easier for the dog to digest or understand, as opposed to using the toy. Also, with a variable schedule reinforcement, the reason behind that is we want to develop, let's say, reliability with the behavior. We want to really strengthen it. And what happens is if you stay, let's say, in the fixed ratio phase for a long time or forever, I've seen some trainers do that, eventually the behavior itself weakens. It's not as strong. The dog becomes somewhat disinterested. It can anticipate that it's going to get a treat. So by leaving, let's say, the fixed ratio phase and moving into the variable schedule reinforcement phase, now you keep things exciting for the dog, because the dog can never predict when the reward is going to come. Hence, the behavior becomes stronger and more reliable. All right, once we leave that phase, and when I say phase, working with a fixed ratio, we move into what we call a variable schedule reinforcement. And all that is where we reward the dog, not for every attempt, but intermittently. We call this the lottery game. So let's say, for example, it's like going to the casino. You put your money in the slot, you pull the handle, you don't win. So you put another coin in, you pull the handle, strike. Boom. You do one more, pull the handle, you win. Eventually, what happens is, because you won that one time, it is enough for you to, let's say, continue to play the game in hopes of getting the reward all over again. We use that same concept when we're working with our dog and having it in what we call a variable schedule reinforcement. We're simply rewarding the dog intermittently. And so for example, let's say we're teaching the sit again. We would say sit, good. So we mark the behavior, reward. We would say sit, good, no reward. We would say sit, good, reward. We would say sit, good, no reward. And that is an example of your variable schedule reinforcement. Beautiful.
Okay.
Very nice.
Good, girl.
And we'll do one more.
Good. Complete. Clutch. Good. Okay.
Ah, wow. Very nice. Good girl. And another example of putting the behavior on a variable schedule reinforcement. The variable schedule is reserved for behaviors that are somewhat strong, and we want to really strengthen them and make them a little bit more reliable. With a variable schedule reinforcement, even if not rewarded, the dog that is, the behavior will exist for some time. And why that is because, again, you put it on an intermittent schedule where the dog can never predict. As opposed to if you kept it on a fixed ratio, eventually if you try to do that without rewards, you'll find that the behavior disappears quite quickly. The variable schedule reinforcement, even if you stop rewarding the behavior, you'll find that the behavior will exist for some time afterwards. And why that is because of the unpredictability. Whereas with the fixed ratio, there's predictability, and that also leads to boredom and disinterest. So if you take away the food, eventually you lose the behavior as well. Also, as fewer responses are rewarded, the behavior itself becomes more reliable. Why that is, once again, that unpredictability. And because now, let's say reward comes, it's very limited, the dog will work even harder to attain the reward. And once again, folks, that's an example of putting the behavior on a variable schedule of reinforcement, rewarding the dog intermittently, keeping the dog guessing. Good job, very nice, perfect. Wunderbar, look, the nose in the camera. All right, guys, we've come to the end of the video. Don't forget, your fixed ratio makes for efficient training. Your variable schedule reinforcement, what that does now, it brings reliability to your work. If you love the video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, and please subscribe to our channel. Have a good one, guys. Take care.